guys, welcome back to another What's for Dinner video. Today I'm sharing with you some super easy and delicious recipes. I know your whole family will love them, so if you are interested, make sure you keep on watching. And if you are new here, go ahead and hit that little subscribe button. I would absolutely love to have you. I do upload What's for Dinner videos every single Sunday. I do lots of cleaning, organization, and motherhood content on my channel, so go ahead and hit subscribe, and let's go ahead and get into the meals for the week. For this first recipe, I am making some sour cream and chicken enchiladas. They were super delicious. I'm just starting off by making some shredded chicken in the Instant Pot. I just did about a cup of chicken broth, and then I seasoned it with some garlic powder, some salt and pepper, and then I pressure cooked this for 11 minutes to start, but I did have to throw it back in for a few more minutes, so I would go for maybe pressure cooking it like 13 minutes or so, give or take. I'm still learning how to perfect the Instant Pot and the right times and everything, and then I did just take my hand mixer and shredded the chicken, and it worked really well that way. I am also cutting up some onion and some red pepper, both of which I had left over in the fridge. I think I did about 2/3 of a yellow onion and chopped that up nice and small. And then I also had probably 2/3 of a red bell pepper, and I also chopped that up into little pieces. I don't think the original recipe called for the bell pepper. I think it had some onion in it. I will have the original recipe linked down below. And then I just added a drizzle of olive oil into a pan over medium heat, and I added in the onions and the peppers, and I cooked those until the onions were completely translucent in color and the peppers were nice and soft. And then you're going to be adding those peppers and onions right into your shredded chicken. Just a reminder, this is about 2 chicken breasts or the equivalent. You could definitely use like a rotisserie chicken or something if it's easier for you, or whatever chicken that you have on hand. And now here I am just adding in probably about 3/4 of a can of red enchilada sauce, and this is the small can. I did end up using 2 of the small cans total for this recipe, and that was just about perfect. So like I mentioned, I will have the original recipe linked down below. This is just my variation on it, and I did pretty much have the recipe for most things. The recipe called for a cup of sour cream, but since I was having it, I only did a 1/2 cup of that, and then mixed that in with the chicken until everything was combined. The original recipe called for some fresh parsley, but I did not have any of that on hand, so I just used some dried parsley and it was just fine. And of course, you're going to need some cheese in your enchiladas. I just used a blend of Colby and Monterey Jack, and I didn't measure this out. I probably used like right around a little over a cup, I would say, but you could definitely follow what the recipe says. Then you'll just be spraying your baking dish, and you will actually want to add a little bit of enchilada sauce on the bottom of your dish. I completely forgot, so you'll see me doing that later. But then you're just going to do a little bit of enchilada sauce in there with the chicken, wrap it up, and you're going to repeat the same process with all of your tortillas. Here you see me taking all of the enchiladas out of the pan because I completely forgot to put that enchilada sauce on the bottom. So don't forget like I did, or you're gonna have to pull them out and put the sauce right on the bottom. And you don't need a lot of sauce to do this, just a little layer to coat the bottom and then put your enchiladas right on top. And then you're gonna be putting the rest of the can over the enchiladas, and that is about it. You're gonna top it with a little bit more shredded cheese, and you do wanna cover this up with aluminum foil for the first 20 minutes or so. I didn't show that, but you definitely do wanna cover it up with a little bit of tin foil. And then you're gonna bake this in the oven for about 20 to 30 minutes, just depending on your oven. And they turn out super delicious. I just served ours with a side of Spanish rice. This next dinner is just about as easy as it can get. I'm making some chicken enchilada pasta, and I'm just using the leftovers from the chicken enchiladas because I did have some of the filling left over. So all I'm doing here is boiling up some noodles. I had about half a box that was opened, so I just used those and boiled those up. And then all I did was warm up the meat mixture in the microwave, pour that over the noodles, and that was really it. I will say I felt like it was a little bit bland, so when I served it, we added a little bit of ranch and salt and pepper on top, and it jazzed it up, and it was a decent meal for really, really affordable and just really good to use up leftovers. For the side, I did want to make sure that we had a vegetable, so I'm just using these California vegetables in the microwave. You guys know I love these steamer bags. I use them all the time. I usually will add just like maybe half a tablespoon to a tablespoon of butter. I do salt, pepper, and a little bit of garlic powder, and that is really it for a super easy side. So this next dinner is going to be a breakfast for dinner recipe. I am making some breakfast burritos and then also some Parmesan potato crisps. They were super delicious, and I'm starting off with those because they take the longest, but I'm just cutting these into very thin slices. I will say next time I'm going to slice them a little bit thicker. I felt like they almost got a little bit too crispy for our liking, so I would probably slice them a little bit thicker than this, but I sliced up about 4 potatoes. And then I just coated my potatoes in a nice layer of olive oil to get the seasonings to stick to that. So for seasonings, I did a little bit of garlic powder, I did some salt and pepper, and then I also did quite a bit of parsley. And since these are Parmesan crisps, of course you're going to need a little bit of Parmesan. The recipe said to do 2 tablespoons of Parmesan right off the bat and then add a little bit towards the end of the cooking time. But I went ahead and added all 4 tablespoons in right away, and I thought it worked out just fine that way. It was one less step to do later on. So I did about 4 tablespoons of Parmesan, and then I am mixing it all together. The recipe said to put these on parchment paper, which I think would be easier, but I didn't have any of that, so I just sprayed my baking sheet with a little bit of olive oil, and it did work out fine. They didn't stick or anything, but the trick to these potatoes is you want to make sure they're in a single layer. You don't want any of them doubled up or they're not going to get nice and crispy, so just make sure that they're all spread out in a thin layer on your baking sheets. I did have to pull out a second one to make sure that they all fit, and then you're going to pop these into a 450-degree oven for about 20 minutes, and then you're going to take them out and you're going to flip them. potatoes are a really good food staple to have on hand, especially right now because they do last for a while and they're super cheap. You will see that we eat a lot of potatoes. They're just an easy thing to make, and I'm always looking for different ways to make them. So that's one little tip for the current situation we're in right now. Get a bag of potatoes and they will last you for quite a while. And this is what the potatoes should come out looking like. They're super nice and crispy and delicious. And then for the breakfast burritos, I'm just starting with a pound of ground pork sausage. I do like to get ours from our local meat locker. I feel like it's much better than what you're going to get at the store. I won't say it's lean because it's pork, but it is a little bit better than what you get at the store typically. And then I'm just cracking some eggs here to make scrambled eggs for inside the breakfast burritos. You can make your scrambled eggs however you like them. I'm just adding a little bit of milk, and then of course my classic seasonings that I add to like every single recipe: salt, pepper, and garlic powder. And then I'm just mixing those all together, and I'm going to make some scrambled eggs. And of course, you're going to want to drain off your breakfast sausage. I always like to use a little strainer and then kind of strain the fat into a bowl. And then once the fat hardens, I just like wipe it out with a paper towel and put it in the garbage. And then I always let my pork drain off any excess on a paper towel. And then here I am just making some scrambled eggs. And now on to actually assembling the breakfast burritos. I'm just using a thin layer of cheese with some ranch. I did a little bit of the sausage in there and also the egg mixture. If you're looking for a little bit healthier alternative to the ranch, you could go ahead and use a little bit of salsa. I also really like that. And yes, that's a very, very full burrito, but I promised you they were super delicious. And I did also make some extras, and I just threw those right into the freezer, and we were able to heat those up as needed for a really quick and easy breakfast. I just threw these onto our griddle to toast the outside a little bit and warm up the cheese on the inside, and this was a super delicious dinner I would highly recommend. This next recipe is another completely made up recipe. I'm just calling it some Crockpot ranch chicken. I'm using up half of an onion that I had left over in my fridge, so just go ahead and chop that up into nice small pieces. And then I'm just spraying my crock pot with a little bit of olive oil like I always do. And then for the chicken, I am using just one chicken breast. I had it frozen in my freezer. And then I'm adding that onion right over the top, along with a little bit of pepper and really whatever seasonings you want. I did pepper, some garlic powder. I did not do any salt because I didn't think it needed it. And then I also did a little bit of parsley. And because this is a ranch chicken gravy, I don't even know what you want to call it. It was really good though, but I did about half a packet of this ranch seasoning mix. And then I did add in 1 can of cream of chicken soup along with 1 cup of chicken broth. You can see here that I wasn't sure if I wanted to add the full amount, but I'm glad I did end up adding the full cup because it ended up coming out the perfect consistency. And then you're just going to cook this on high for about 5 hours is all that mine took. I shredded it when it came out, and that is about it for this really easy chicken ranch gravy sort of mix thing we got going on. But it was really delicious. You can obviously serve this over whatever you'd like, but I decided to do some mashed potatoes on this particular night. It just sounded really good, but this would also be super delicious over like rice or pasta, really any sort of carb. Or if you're trying to do low carb, you could probably just eat it by itself, honestly, or serve it over like some zoodles or something would be really good. But yeah, here I am just cutting up some potatoes and getting those boiling on the stove and getting them all nice and soft. I did salt my water just a little bit. And then to my mashed potatoes, I'm adding in just a couple scoops of sour cream. I added in some butter, and I did do a little bit of onion powder, some garlic powder, and some salt and pepper. That's pretty much my go-to when it comes to making mashed potatoes. And I do always make sure to warm my milk up. It just makes it so much better. And then I am just mashing all of these potatoes up. And I figured we should probably have a veggie with this, so I just did a little bit of olive oil in a pan, and I added in some garlic and let that kind of flavor the oil. And then I just steamed a packet of these fine green beans in the microwave, and I ended up just kind of stir frying them a little bit more in the pan with the garlic, and it was super delicious that way. I did add a little bit of salt and pepper too, just for a little bit more flavor. The last recipe of the week is going to be this slow cooker honey and garlic chicken. I found this recipe off of Pinterest and it was super easy. I'm going to have the whole thing linked down below in the description box. This red bell pepper was not part of the original recipe, but I'm really glad that I added it. I just had it in my fridge and I needed to use it up, so I decided to cut it up and add it to the crock pot, and it was super delicious and added a ton of flavor. And then the recipe also did call for a small onion, so I ended up cutting up part of this yellow onion to add into the crock pot. Go ahead and spray your crock pot with a little bit of oil, and then you're going to be adding in your chicken breast. And this is where I say follow the original recipe, don't do what I do. I only added in 2 chicken breasts and the recipe called for 4, so definitely add the 4 chicken breasts instead of the 2, or you could also have the sauce, but definitely follow the recipe on this one because the sauce was a little bit too strong. But go ahead and add in your chicken and your peppers and your onions, and then you're going to do about half a cup of this soy sauce, and that is all going to go right into your crock pot. The recipe called for a 1/3 cup of hoisin sauce, but I did not have any, so I actually ended up using some teriyaki sauce, and it totally worked just fine. So I did that, a 1/3 cup, and then I also did a 1/3 cup of the honey. And these are the measurements for 4 chicken breasts. I just want to clarify that because I did add only 2 and it was too strong. And then you'll also need 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar, which is what the recipe calls for, but all I had was white wine vinegar, so that's what I used, and it turned out just fine. So do that, and then you'll also need a couple big scoops of minced garlic. I just used the jarred kind, and you will also want to have a little bit of ginger in there. And another substitution, because I did not have any sesame oil, I just added in 1 teaspoon of olive oil along with a little bit of these crushed red pepper flakes. And then I just cooked this on high for about 4 hours, and it ended up being just right and perfectly shreddable. When your chicken is completely done, you're gonna want to make a little cornstarch slurry. So I just added 3 tablespoons of cornstarch to 3 tablespoons of water and mixed that up. And then you're gonna be adding this right into your crock pot, into the sauce port after you have pulled the chicken out. I have recently discovered how much easier it is to use a hand mixer versus shredding your chicken with 2 forks. So if you have not tried that, I would highly recommend trying that. Here, just watching this footage back, it's like so hard to even watch because it's so much easier to just use your hand mixer. It's way less time consuming and it just comes out definitely like a better shredded chicken. It's not so chunky, so definitely try that if you have not already. I just decided to serve ours over some white rice and it was really good that way. I would definitely make this recipe again, but like I've said before, make sure you're using 4 chicken breasts and not 2 because the sauce was too strong with the amount of chicken that I used. My husband did really like it, but I felt like the sauce was a little bit too strong for my liking. So go ahead and follow the recipe that I have linked in the description box and I'm sure it will come out absolutely perfect for you. Definitely would make this again though. It was a really good meal and it was something that was a little bit different, which was really nice. Well, that is it for this What's for Dinner video. I hope that you enjoyed it and that it gave you some meal ideas and inspiration for your week. And if you have a favorite recipe, go ahead and leave it for me in the comments down below. Maybe I will make it in a future What's for Dinner video. I would love some new recipes, so leave me a comment down there if you have a favorite. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel. I would love to have you. Give this video a thumbs up and I will see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.